whither away, my bonny maid? Say late and say far in the gloaming, the mist.
This video is all about contemporary folk music of the British Isles, which is part of Area of Study 3, Traditional Music. First, we need to be clear what British folk music really is. Well, it's traditional music that developed in Britain, dating as far back as the 18th century, where many pieces started as sea shanties or work songs. Songs and tunes have been passed down through the generations and were not written down at all before the 1900s. Folk melodies are often simple tunes that are memorable and easy to sing. Folk music makes use of traditional instruments like the violin or fiddle, accordion or bagpipes. We will talk more about instruments a bit later. Traditionally, folk groups are small and usually have just one singer, but there is sometimes call and response with a small group. This links back to the origin of many of the songs where workers would sing a response to a leader.
For the morrow he will march.
Listen to this example, which is a famous Scottish folk tune. You can hear a concertina, like a small accordion, in the background, and a drone or long-held note. Notice how sparse the accompaniment is, bringing the focus onto the voice and the lyrics. You can also hear a solo played on the Northumbrian small pipes, which are a bit like bagpipes, but played with bellows using pressure from the elbow rather than blown. Again, more on instruments later.
Oh, you take the high road and I'll take the low. I'll be in Scotland a-faring, for me and my true love will never meet again by the bonny banks of Loch Lomond.
Contemporary folk music combines modern musical influences with a respect for traditional melody, rhythm, words and/or dance forms. There are often modern instruments used alongside the traditional ones, and with the added use of modern studio effects and amplification.
The sun shines on Loch Lomond.
This is the same Scottish folk melody, Loch Lomond, but as recorded by the Scottish band Runrig in 1982. You can hear the traditional melody and lyrics, along with some traditional instruments, such as the pipes you can hear at some points, but overall there is a much more rock feel to this recording. This is due to the use of rock instruments, drum kit, bass and electric guitars, and modern amplification and effects such as reverb. You can also tell that this is a large gig with a big audience, and at times you hear them joining in by singing along, showing the huge popularity of this kind of music at the time. Of course, 1982 is not exactly modern, and this kind of music has lost some of its mass appeal in recent decades. Let's take a look at another contemporary folk song. This is Sky Walking Song, recorded by AQA in 2000. Here, walking refers to a process in making cloth, which had a rhythmic beating to it, and workers would sing as they worked. You can hear the use of traditional instruments, here including the Ulean pipes, which are a bit like bagpipes but softer in sound, and again played using bellows pressed by the elbow. There is a bodhran, which is a frame drum played with a stick, originally from Ireland but popular in lots of folk music, and a bouzouki, which is a kind of lute that looks a bit like a pear-shaped guitar. The bouzouki originated in Greece, but again is not uncommon in British folk music. This song also includes the fiddle, which is what the violin is always called in folk music, and an accordion. A bit like Runrig, AQA also fuse modern instruments with the traditional ones. This recording includes a synthesizer, bass guitar, drum kit and, unusually, a Wurlitzer piano, which is a kind of early electronic piano that makes a metallic sound. Can you tell the time signature of this music? If you listen carefully, each beat divides into 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and a 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4 and this means that the time signature will have an 8 at the bottom, meaning each beat is divided into quavers. To get the top number, we need to feel how many beats there are in each bar. This piece has a 4 in a bar feel, with each beat divided into 3, so the time signature is 12/8. Quite a lot of folk music has this kind of feel. It's called a compound time signature, and you can tell by listening carefully and feeling whether each beat divides into 3. 3 beats in a bar, with each beat divided into 3, would be 9/8, and 2 beats in a bar, with each beat divided into 3, would be 6/8. Remember that if each beat divides into 2 instead, that is called a simple time signature, and will usually be 2/4, 3/4 or 4/4. Let's take a look at some of the key features of contemporary British folk music that it will be well worth remembering. We'll start with melody. This is often pentatonic, meaning it is based on the pentatonic or 5-note scale. Melodies are often repetitive and have a small range, using only a few notes. They usually involve a lot of stepwise movements and often follow the natural rhythm of the lyrics. These features make them quite easy to sing along to, and the tunes are often memorable or catchy, so they are easily picked up. This is how they have been passed on for so many years. The harmony in folk music can also often be described as pentatonic, using the 5-note scale. There are no semitones in this scale, which means none of the notes clash with each other, and it is easy to add vocal harmonies. Songs are usually based on just a few chords, sometimes as few as 2 in a whole song. You sometimes get a drone underneath the harmony, as we heard earlier, which acts like a pedal note. And the last important thing about the tonality of folk music is that it is sometimes modal. This means it is based on a scale that is older than the major and minor ones we know today, but the effect to listen out for is a sort of old world sound to the harmony, almost as though it's somewhere in between major and minor, or has aspects of both. For time and tempo, you'll remember that folk music is often in compound time, meaning 12/8, 9/8 or 6/8, with a feeling of 3 to every beat. Be aware that this is not always present in folk music, so listen carefully. The tempo can be quite fast if the tune was originally for dancing to, or slower and steadier if it was originally a work song.
The shelter also gave their shade, but in the dark I have no...
Rhythms in folk music can sometimes include dotted rhythms, especially if the tune was a dance, and the music often features an ostinato or repeating rhythmic pattern. Again, you need to listen carefully, as not all these features are present in every piece of folk music. The structure of folk music is very often strophic, which means the same music is repeated over and over for each verse. Sometimes there is a chorus, which could be a slight variation on the verse. The phrases normally have an even number of bars, usually 4. Textures can be varied, but often start very simple with just a melody and accompaniment or homophonic texture. In modern folk music, the music sometimes builds to a very complicated, thick-sounding texture with many independent parts, also known as polyphonic. The instrumentation in contemporary folk music is especially important because it is a blend of traditional instruments with modern ones. Traditional folk instruments include the accordion, bodhran, fiddle and Ulean pipes, or Northumbrian small pipes or sometimes bagpipes. You often also find an acoustic guitar, bouzouki or banjo. In the old days there would usually have been one singer, or sometimes some call and response with a small group, and everything would be acoustic, so with no amplification or technology. In contemporary or modern folk music, these instruments are blended with more modern ones like electric guitar, bass guitar, drum kit, keyboards and synthesizers. And while there is still often a solo singer, there is much more use of amplification and technology to enhance the sound.
When I lose my head, I lose my spine.
It is well worth having a listen to some more contemporary British folk music, to familiarise yourself with the way it sounds and to practice identifying its characteristic features. You could listen to anything by Runrig or Caper Cayley, the bands we've already touched on. Another group is Mumford & Sons, formed in 2007. This is their song Hopeless Wanderer. Look up the official music video on YouTube to see the clear mix of instruments.
But you know your desire don't.
For a mellower sound, listen to Kate Rusby, who has a very pure sounding voice and has won numerous awards for her arrangements of existing folk songs as well as her own material. This is her song Underneath the Stars.
Underneath the stars I'll meet you. Underneath the stars I'll greet you. And there beneath the stars I'll leave you before you go of your own free will. Go gently. Underneath